Donald Trump is telling us the FBI seized his passports when they raided his home in Mar-a-Lago. That's a big problem. It's not just his passports. It might be some other highly privileged materials. So today we're going to start with this headline from Fox News. They say, FBI seizes privileged Trump records during a raid, and the DOJ opposes the request for the independent review. We've already went through the actual motion that was filed today by the DOJ. They do not want you to see that affidavit associated with the warrant. And maybe there's some reasons why. Maybe because there's some documents in there that they shouldn't have. Exclusive. Fox tells us the FBI seized boxes containing records covered by attorney-client privilege and potentially executive privilege during its raid of Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. Sources say. Sources familiar with the investigation, they tell us that the president's team was informed that these boxes labeled A14, A26, A43, A13, A33. We've got, a lot of threes here on the back end, but no real pattern there. And a set of documents, all seen on the final page of the FBI's property receipt, contained information covered by attorney-client privilege. And we were trying to sort of envision how this was working, because you just walk out with those boxes, and I don't know how everybody else, works here, but I have a lot of work stuff at my home. In fact, I work from home now most of the time. I have an office and I go there to spend time with the team and do team-like things. But because of my schedule and because of what I do, I'm sort of home a lot of the time. And the president is somebody who is not dissimilar from that. And so anytime you change jobs, my first law firm, I walked out with boxes, and I had boxes sitting in my garage for a year until I went to my second law firm, and then got to move the box over to that law firm. And it's kind of one of these things that just sort of happens. And you ask yourself, well, is that what we're talking about here, right? Were these Trump's records and sort of, notes with his lawyers and his, executive team, his executive staff, and so on and so forth? Well, we don't know, but we do know that there was a lot of conversating taking place between Trump and the DOJ and NARA, the National Archives, because they were trying to sort a lot of this stuff out. And the New York Times gave us some details. They're actually saying that Trump and his team were saying that these materials had already been returned. And so we've got several different components to this, sort of, are you in possession of confidential documents? Like physical possession is one thing. Then we've got, in possession or returned. That's an issue. Then we have confidentiality. Was it confidential or not, if that matters? And then you have sort of presidential authority to declassify, and whether that supersedes confidentiality. You got all these layers. And so it's very academic to do this analysis in circles unless we know more about what the actual investigation is about. Giving us three broad statutes is not enough. Trump lawyer tells the DOJ that the classified material had been returned. Beautiful picture of Mar-a-Lago that was just invaded by the FBI. An inventory was taken, but at least one lawyer from the former president, Donald Trump, signed a written statement in June asserting that all material marked as classified and held in boxes in a storage area had been returned to the government. Four people with knowledge of the document said. Okay, so somebody in Trump's orbit signed this document. We've got everything. Does that mean that somebody who was in Trump's orbit said, no, you don't? There's boxes A26, A33, A47, and so on in the closet. And they sent that over to the DOJ or to National Archives. And so four people know that this Trump lawyer said, I returned my library books. And then somebody, the hall monitor at the high school, said, oh, he didn't really return his library books. He's a liar. So they went to the library hall monitor teacher and they said, he didn't return his library books. And they said, oh, you're kidding me. Well, we hate that kid anyways. So why don't we just go kick in his front door and beat his head over the head with the blackboard eraser? And that's exactly what happened. But this took place at the president's former residence in Mar-a-Lago. And this is a conversation that is not illegitimate, right? It's we have to make these distinctions. Was it confidential? Was it in an inappropriate geographic region? Was this an authorized retention or a non-authorized retention? And on whose authority is the retention based? One lawyer says it was all returned. The written declaration was made after a visit on June 3rd by Jay Bratt, top counterintelligence official at the DOJ, National Security Division. The existence of the signed declaration, which had not been previously reported, is a possible indication that his team was not fully forthcoming with investigators. It could explain why a potential violation of a criminal statute related to obstruction was cited, right? They said they signed off on this document. I gave you all my library books back. They said, no, you didn't. The department, right, this might be the basis for seeking the warrant. Some snitch said that there's boxes somewhere, and so we got to go get them. It might also help further explain the sequence of events. An inventory of the material was taken, and the search encompassed many areas, not just the storage areas where boxes were held, but also Trump's office and residence. Inventory unsealed did not specify where the classified documents were. We had a very interesting statement here from Donald Trump when over the weekend there was subpoenas flying back and forth. But Donald Trump, after all of this unfolded, after the raid took place, he actually reached out to the Justice Department and acknowledged that the country was on fire. I'm trying to find this quote. Let's see if here. Yeah, there it is. Trump spoke with somebody from his team. The message that he wanted to convey over to the DOJ, according to a person familiar, was that the country is on fire. And he said, what can I do to reduce the heat? So it would go from Trump to his aide over to the DOJ aide, from the DOJ aide over to Merrick Garland. The country is on fire. He knows that people are outraged by the search. And so he's saying, what can I do to help? Now, people are talking about that, and they're saying that this was his cry for help, right? He's saying, oh, can I plead with you? Can I reduce the heat? Can you reduce the heat on me? I'll help you, help me, help you type of a thing. I'm not so sure about that because last week we also know that Donald Trump had to sit for depositions with Letitia Tishy James. And apparently after that interview or during that deposition, he wasn't rattled at all. He was sort of kind of happy and sort of giddy about what was taking place. He wasn't even concerned about it at all. So that is some additional activity from New York Times about what took place there at Mar-a-Lago. Over the weekend, Donald Trump was on Truth Social, and he had a lot to say about this recent raid. Let's go through some of his posts. He said this, wow, in the raid by the FBI of Mar-a-Lago, they stole my 3 passports, 1 expired, along with everything else. This is an assault on a political opponent at a level never seen before in our country. Third world. So again, right, these are boxes which may have many of his personal effects in them, including his passports, journal notes, like I have a desk here. Like I have a desk drawer. Can you hear this? Full of crap in there. Did they take that? There's probably confidential information in there. They may go rummage through there. Maybe there's some confidential information in there. I don't know what's in there. Espionage, some this, that, or the other. Presidential records, this, that, or the other. Official materials, this, that, or the other, right? All right. Seizing his passports now so that he can't go anywhere, I guess. Trump says, Republicans could win many additional seats, both in the House and the Senate, because of the strong backlash over the raid at Mar-a-Lago. Polls are showing that some lost Republican territory over the last number of weeks has been more than made up with the unannounced break-in by the FBI, which should never have happened. It's true. Should never have happened. Or maybe it should have, but they haven't told us that yet. And remember, Donald Trump deserves the same presumption of innocence as anybody in this country. If they're going to break precedent, break protocol, do something like this, they have the burden of proof to justify their actions. They haven't proven it. Trump posted this. He says, America has never suffered this kind of abuse in law enforcement. For the FBI to raid the home of the 45th president of the United States, or any president for that matter, he says, it's totally unheard of and it's unthinkable. This break-in, and that's the second time he calls it a break-in, says was a sneak attack on democracy in our republic, and was both unannounced and done at a time when the president was not even present. It was for political, not legal reasons, and our entire country is angry, hurt, and greatly embarrassed by it. Make America great again. It's Donald Trump. Yeah, it is a little bit embarrassing. Indeed, it is. He said, America I just left a large gathering of people, and all they could talk about was the complete and total stranglehold that the radical left Democrats have over the DOJ and the FBI. It shouldn't be that way. Nobody goes after BLM, Antifa, or the rest, despite murder, beatings, and burning down large sections of cities, a very unfair double standard. They definitely won't attack the home of a former Democrat president, nor should they. Very peaceful. Very, very peaceful. Nor should they. It is all so out of control. Great simmering anger. But he did say peaceful. Right there. You can also see more posts. I told you he was just going. He says, oh, great. It's just been learned that the FBI, in its now famous raid of Mar-a-Lago, took boxes of privileged attorney-client material and also executive privilege material, which they knowingly should not have taken. By copy of this truth, I respectfully request that these documents be immediately returned to the location from which they were taken. Thank you. Man, he's so polite too. Look how nice he asked for that. I mean, that's something you teach like I don't know. When do you start teaching kids things? I have no idea. 7, 9? Whenever you start teaching them manners, you should teach them manners like this. I respectfully request that these documents be immediately returned to the location from which they were taken. Thank you. Very, very polite. Let's see what else he has to say. Donald Trump said, by the way, the FBI has a long and unrelenting history of being corrupt. Just look back to the days of J. Edgar Hoover. In the modern era, nothing has changed except that it has gotten far worse. Look at Comey, McCabe, Strzok, and the lover Lisa Page. Check out the brilliantly written but damning IG reports. See what they were willing to do in order to get crooked Hillary Clinton elected. They failed and got caught. They spied on my campaign, pushed the fake dossier, and they illegally used the FISA court. The Inspector General said the FBI acted with, quote, gross incompetence and negligence. I was fully vindicated in the Russia scam, the, quote, no collusion Mueller investigation, impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, and all else. Now they raid my home, ban my lawyers, and without any witnesses allowed, break the lock that they asked us to install on the storage area that we showed them early on, which held papers that they could have had months ago for the asking, and without the ridiculous political grandstanding of a, quote, break-in to a very storied, important, and high-visibility place just before the midterm elections. The whole world was watching as the FBI rummaged through the house, including the former First Lady's closets and clothing, exclamation point. Alone and unchecked. They even demanded that the security cameras be turned off. We refused. But there was no way of knowing if what they took was legitimate or there was a, quote, plant, question mark. This was, after all, the FBI. Donald Trump was letting loose on Truth Social and telling the truth and posting truths feverishly to communicate to the American people. And a big part of the debate that was taking place was about this confidentiality component, right? Many layers here. What about the geographic location? Can Trump have a home office with some leftover documents in there? Is anything a presidential record? Anything that was, sort of a lunch note or something like that? What counts? I don't know. A lot of questions there. We have to ask ourselves about privilege, executive privilege, attorney-client privilege. We have to ask about declassification and sort of the authority to declassify things, right? If you're the president and you're the ultimate, chief executive of the entire country, and you run the FBI as the head executive, and you want to declassify some of those documents, if you have to check with the FBI, do you really have the power to do that? It's like, if you have money in your bank account, your money that's in your bank account that you can't spend, is that really your money? No, it's not, right? Kind of the same thing here. Now, that argument is being made by KASH Patel. KASH Patel has some background in this. He's going to explain it to us. He was on with somebody. Let's see what we've got here on Fox News. And we're going to clip a little bit of this. Here he is, and he's on all the socials. I think he's got a podcast and all sorts of stuff. KASH Patel. Make sure there's his name right there. Make sure you go follow his work over on Rumble and wherever else you can find him. But here he was talking with this news anchor about some of this.
President Trump made it his mission to declassify and be transparent. In October of 2020, he issued a sweeping declassification order for every Russiagate document and every single Hillary Clinton document. Then on the way out of the White House, he issued further declassification orders, declassifying whole sets of documents. And this is a key fact that most Americans are missing. President Trump, as the sitting president, is a unilateral authority for declassification. He can literally stand over a set of documents and say, these are now declassified. And that is done with definitive action immediately. The fact.
Okay, so that's a pretty big statement. And a lot of people are saying that's not true at all, right? That's not true at all. If you have all these other agencies who are involved, or if you have let's say a congressional established agency that governs this, has jurisdiction over this, they may be outside of the separation of powers. Remember, this is a big part of this is separation of powers. If Congress can legislate away what the president can do, right, they have to have authority to do that. If the original Constitution gives you can trace it back to the origin story of the Constitution, then the president has that authority. And if another branch tries to encroach on it, we learned about this in social studies and civics class. You have checks and balances, and the competing branches are supposed to punch back on the other branches that are encroaching upon their powers. And so what KASH Patel is arguing, he's saying, no, it just goes back to the original power. So if Congress and all of these bureaucrats want to limit his ability to do this stuff, well, they can't, because that would limit his power.
That the bureaucrats at NARA who referred, remember, the National Archives are the ones that referred this to the Department of Justice, but they, the same principle, failed to refer Hillary Clinton to the Department of Justice when they got their hands on the classified emails from those servers.
We're coming back to that.
Switching gears a little bit to the national security officials involved. Me as a former national security prosecutor in the National Security Division where this case is being run out of, it's no surprise that the likes of John Carlin, who was the Assistant Attorney General for National Security, who authorized the Russiagate hoax to begin with, is now the #3 official at DOJ. And Lisa Monaco is the #2 official, who was his superior back then.
Okay, did you hear what he said? So just a couple things. Used to be a special prosecutor for intelligence investigations, just like this one. Name dropped several people. And if you heard, he referenced Lisa Monaco. Also used to work in the same department. Guess where Lisa Monaco works now? She's deputy over at the DOJ. She works right under Merrick Garland. She's the person I've been screaming about for years. Merrick Garland is this little milquetoast guy. He was a Supreme Court nominee. He has never offended anybody in his life. I mean, purposefully. He doesn't know, he is so bland and, he's just sort of a stand-in. He's very much like Joe Biden. He goes out, he reads a statement, probably has, tremendous ethics and all this stuff, all that, right? But he doesn't know how to navigate a political storm like this. And he's sort of just, kind of going through the motions. The people who are maneuvering the political components of this thing, it's Lisa Monaco. Merrick Garland's complicit. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. But he's not the brains behind these political operations. It is other people who are really moving things around behind the scene. And KASH Patel just gave us that hierarchy, that litany. It's all the same people. Why didn't they do the same investigation for Hillary?
These folks, and this is the thing I want to stress with, now that this is a quote-unquote ongoing FBI counterintelligence investigation, they will come out to the American public and be able to say, ongoing CI investigation, you will never be allowed to see the Russiagate docs or any other docs that President Trump lawfully declassified, and they will hide it from the public. And Congress has a monumental lift ahead of them. Come November, they better start subpoenaing these documents immediately and putting these people before the American public. Merrick Garland and FBI Director Chris Wray have failed in their mission to uphold the law. They have become political hucksters.
And they're talking about impeaching them. In fact, Marjorie Taylor Greene filed impeachment documents. We're going to get to that in a minute. But this is sort of buttressed by, I believe this is one of Trump's lawyers or somebody who's on Trump's team. He's making the same point. He's saying, look, Donald Trump declassified all of these things, right? Standing orders for declassifications. And so they don't have privilege, executive privilege, attorney-client privilege. You've got declassification authority. You've got sort of the ability to do it on the fly, or did you already do it previously? Here's this guy.
I apologize for looking down, but I have to, it's so fresh, it's on my phone. It literally just came in. This is from President Trump's office. It just came in a few minutes ago. As we can all relate to, everyone ends up having to bring home their work from time to time. American presidents are no different. President Trump, in order to prepare the work the next day, often took documents, including classified documents, to the residence. He had a standing order. There's the word I've been looking for.
Standing order.
That documents removed from the Oval Office and taken to the residence were deemed to be declassified the moment he removed them. The power to classify and declassify documents rests solely with the President of the United States. The idea that some paper-pushing bureaucrat with classification authority delegated by the President needs to approve the declassification is absurd.
Yeah.
I asked around over the last couple of days.
Like, is this an argument over a category of documents? That's what this whole debate's about? Just like a category of documents. Trump said they're declassified. They say they're classified. They say, we want the library books back. He says, no, they're my library books. Okay, they're not your actual library books. They're mine. I bought them or whatever. And they say, no, we're going to come get them. We're sending in the hall monitor to come down there and try on Melania's dresses while we're over there. They did that. And so I started to think about this, and I thought, my gosh, we do have some precedent on this. We have Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton was in a very similar situation. You remember, she had all of those emails, all of those private records, and she actually deleted them. Remember that? So there were no boxes to haul out of her house. Not that the FBI raided her, as we're going to listen to. But had she had boxes, they wouldn't have raided her. But she deleted the boxes, right? She sort of incinerated them. She sort of put them in the shredder to some degree. Very similar saga. We wanted to know what were in Hillary's emails because of Benghazi and because of dead American ambassadors. A lot of people had a lot of questions about it. Unfortunately, when the FBI, that many people on the left are now saying is, very, very honorary and full of integrity and ultimately ethical, this was their response. This is in song format. Here is James Comey.
Good morning. I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation of Secretary Clinton. What I want to do is tell you what we're recommending. But first, let me tell you what we found. 110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains were top secret, 36 of those chains secret, and 8 contained confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
Everything I did was permitted. There was no law, no regulation.
Secretary Clinton should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email.
None of these emails should have been on any kind of unclassified system, not even Gmail.
Well, first of all, nothing was marked classified.
To the contrary,
Nothing was marked classified.
there is evidence of a
Nothing was
tremendous
marked.
amount.
Nothing was marked classified.
Now let me tell you what we found.
my God.
110 emails.
It was not the best choice.
52 email chains
It was a mistake.
have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it
8
make?
of those chains were top
It wasn't
secret.
the best choice.
36 of those chains
I said
secret.
it was a mistake.
And 8 contained confidential information.
What difference at this point does it
With
make?
respect to our recommendation, this is going to be an unusual statement in at least a couple of ways. Although there is evidence, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. What difference at this point does it make? 110 emails.
It wasn't the best choice.
52 email chains
I made a mistake.
have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it
8
make?
of those chains were
It
top
was not a
secret.
good choice.
36 of those chains
I said it was a mistake.
and 8 contained confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
All right. So I did not create that. Let me give you the source on that one. Absolutely amazing. And I don't know if this came from recently or if that was something that was created when the original saga came in, but I originally found it from this individual here, Miami for Trump, at Miami for Trump. So shout out to at Miami for Trump for posting it or re-upping it. You can see it's got 1.9 million views. So be sure to go give her a follow if you haven't already done it. because that is, I mean, that's the saga, right? That's the same thing here. All the people screaming and hemming and hawing about Donald Trump, about classified national security, all these problems, all sort of look the other way for old Hillary Clinton. So go check that out with Miss Miami, at Miami for Trump on Twitter to go get a full copy of that one.